Hello, welcome to the Impact Show. My name is Mark Foster and I'll be your host today. Today's guest on the Impact is Mr. Joe Mariscal, local artist, renowned local artist known throughout the country and internationally for his various works of art. And he's also an art instructor here at San Joaquin Delta's College. And one of the reasons why I might add that Delta College's art department is so highly regarded. Welcome to the show, Mr. Mariscal. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Mark.
You betcha, you betcha.
Pleasure.
How long have you been teaching here at Delta College?
Well, I'm happy to say I was hired full-time in 1991, but I was part-time instructor in 1975, so almost 20 years.
Yeah, that's great. You've been around the community for some time, and we're just happy that you're an instructor here. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
What kind of classes do you teach here at Delta?
Well, primarily my focus is ceramics, and I teach three sections of ceramics, but I also teach Introduction to Art, which is a lecture course for non-art majors.
Okay, so that's almost like a scholastic class, which you would have midterms and
right.
tests.
They got to listen to me yak in that class. The other ones is a hand-on class. I teach them how to throw, teach them how to hand build, so there's more creativity from the point of the students.
Okay, as an artist, you're primarily based with ceramic creations. Is that what you do? You make stuff out of clay, basically?
Right. You know, that's my focus. Anything you want to do well, I think you got to spend a lot of time with, and so the clay gets a little jealous. So that's what I work with the most. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Over your career, what has inspired you, or what has been some of your influences in regards to your artworks that you've made and that you teach? What are the things that influence you in your work?
Well, people. I think people is what inspires me. I think most of all, you know, my environment, things that I'm involved with. So, you know, a lot of it comes from my childhood. And in fact, I think the earliest, I remember my uncle asking me when I was very young, I was Joey then. He said, "Joey, what do you want to be when you grow up?" "I want to be an artist." And they said, "Well, that's nice." And they hoped I'd pursue something else, actually.
Yeah, but come to find out you haven't, and you've pursued the art career, right. And it's been quite successful for you, hasn't it?
Well, that little cliche about a starving artist is really true. But, you know, now that I'm a full-time instructor, you know, things are much better now.
Right, right. We have the opportunity to show some slides of some of your works here, and maybe we can walk through it with each other, and you can tell us what came out of the works. The first piece of work is called "The Iron in the Stove." Would you care to elaborate on that a little bit for us? Back
in the early 80s, I had decided, like a lot of other people, that I would keep a journal. Right, I wanted to write in a journal every day, and like, what was the earliest thing I could remember? And I'd sit there with kind of a mental block, and I couldn't write because I always felt that, well, it's like a diary, it's so private, you know, that sort of thing. And I said, well, I can't do that, but perhaps maybe a visual diary. And so I started doing these little miniatures, and they each deal with some sort of personal thing in my life. And, you know, art heals, right?
Right.
That's one of the things. Art heals, and this image that you see, that the iron in the stove, had to do with when my parents split up. And as a child, I didn't understand it. So I remember the day that my parents split up, and we drove from San Francisco, where I was born, to Stockton, where some of my other family was living. And I remember right before we left, my mother and father were arguing about an iron, that the iron belonged to her, no, to him, to her, to her. And I was watching it. The only sense I could make of it as a child was, oh, that's why we're divorcing him, because he's stealing an iron from my mother. See, so but wow. When I got much older, I was angry that they weren't arguing about me. See, so I showed this image to my mother, and I said, "Look, Mom, I wanted her to read it so she can kind of see. Well, you know, I'm sorry I did this to you." She said, "Joe, it wasn't an iron; it was a toaster." So.
Toaster in the stove, so to speak.
So it should be the
That's
toaster.
Great.
In the stove.
That's great. We had a chance to look at the iron in the stove there just for a minute, and that is made out of ceramic.
Right. Mud.
Mud, just mud.
Clay, just clay.
The dog, the mom, and the dad, and the iron. We're going to go now to, what's this, hobo hopping in Old St. Mary's?
Yeah, this is another memory from my childhood. those of us that have been in Stockton, we came to Stockton in the early 50s, so this town has changed a little bit, but in front of St. Mary's Church, which is a Catholic church down by the police department, the freeway runs in front of it now, but there used to be a park, a large park, and St. Mary's used to always have a dining hall for the homeless. And right before the mass, last mass, people used to congregate there. And when we got out of mass, we'd go to the movies, and when we came back, everybody had had their meal and were laying in the park and resting. And so we would run from one end of the park to the other, hobo hopping. So we'd jump over and we'd get chased by people. They never caught us, though. But
kids having
that's
fun.
a childhood memory. Huh?
Fantastic, fantastic. I think we have another slide here that we'd like to show everybody. I think that's almost giving up the spirit, if I'm not...
Right. Art heals. Like say, I was a Vietnam vet, and I am technically a disabled Vietnam vet. I got shrapnel that I carry around with me, and instead of taking it out, they left it in, and I get beer money, right, every month. And this had to do with the day that I got wounded, and I got to Vietnam on the day that Ho Chi Minh died. Which was September 1st, 1969, and I said, oh boy, this got to be a good or a bad omen, right? And about several weeks later, I stepped on a booby trap and went down and went through all the tunnel and the life, when your body leaves, the spirit leaves the body, and all through that. And so that had to do with that, is that, I felt myself dying and then didn't. Obviously, I'm here, so but this had to do with that experience, and it's kind of a catharsis of sorts.
So that's you coming out of yourself and maybe looking at the afterlife. That's fantastic. Vietnam was such a controversial war, and a lot of people didn't appreciate our people being over there and fighting for them. Okay, we have another one here, and I think this is the left-handed salute.
Yeah, this deals with that very thing you were talking about, how people would be treated when you come back. Your baby killers, dope addicts, and stupid, for fighting for your country, or whatever your perspective was. But in the military, if anybody's ever been in the military, if you salute with your right hand properly, that's the way to do it. But if you happen to do it this way, you get into a lot of deep stuff. Because that's not the way to salute. But what happens if you lose your arm? And you can see this vet has lost his right arm. So he's saluting with his left hand, which is improper. But I titled it the left-handed salute for that reason, because if you think in terms of a left-handed compliment, that's no compliment at all. So the left-handed salute deals with, is this veteran, kind of proud, he's a patriot and he gave for his country, or maybe he's a little angry because now he's disfigured and deformed and, it didn't amount to anything, So you leave it to the viewer to kind of see what they see. Right?
They can get out of it what they might get out of it, might not necessarily.
But I lead them a little bit with the left-handed salute. So.
Right, it's kind of
There's
opposite.
a tear coming down the eye, too, so you can't see that in the slide, but that's part of it.
We can pick that up. Yeah, that's great. So after coming back from Vietnam, wounded, you come back to California, and then I understand that you got a GI Bill and you pursued your career as a student in Mexico. Can you tell us a little about that?
One of the reasons I got drafted is because I couldn't afford to stay in school.
Oh, is that right?
I had 12 units, or 12 and a half units, which was full-time. Had a deferment. Couldn't make it, had to get a job. Dropped down to part-time, got drafted immediately. So going to the military allowed me to use the GI Bill of education. So when I came back, I left the United States and went to school in Mexico. And I found out that I could use the GI Bill in Denmark or Finland or Mexico, where my parents were from. Both my parents were born in Mexico, so I decided to get an education and visit my roots, if you will.
And that's what my next question was going to be. Going back to Mexico, did you not necessarily find yourself running away from America, the Vietnam War, but going back to maybe your homeland, your heritage, to find out, the roots, and maybe inspire yourself in your artwork and in your scholastic skills at the time? Is that what that was all about, pretty much?
Well, all of that, Mark.
Yeah.
But like yourself, it's tough to be a student and work. So I figured, well, if I can get the GI Bill, I can go to Mexico where the money went further and not have to work and concentrate on my education, which I did.
Okay, I'd like for you to, maybe if you could share with us, I know you have art shows around the valley here and around California and maybe elsewhere, I don't know, but maybe you could share with us what type of works, ceramic works do you show in your art, and what kind of response do you get from people from your works?
Well, it all depends on my own personal experiences, like you saw with the slides we saw just a second ago.
Yeah.
But depending on what I'm going through at a particular moment, the art kind of reflects that. And one of the other jobs that say I had when I wasn't here at Delta full time, I was teaching at the Alan Short Center, which is the art school for developmentally disabled adults, right? And I did portraits of them.
Yeah.
I did portraits of them. They were my pals. We got along great, and I did portraits of them. And when I presented the images, I was a little concerned about how people would receive them because I didn't want them to think they were looking at a freak show. Right?
Exactly.
These are people that I really cared about, and the payoff was I had a mother who had a Down syndrome son come up to me in tears, and I thought, oh my God, I really blew it this time. She gave me a hug and said, I really appreciate your work, she says, because I could tell that you really care about these people and you're very sensitive with your images. And I was like, whew, so that's sort of like one example of how my work reflects what I'm doing and feeling. So I like people, and it comes out in the work.
Yeah, it sounds very positive and
I try to be
helping people, and that's fantastic. Art can be interpreted in so many different ways, and in your way it's pretty much helping people and getting people involved maybe, and in your own special way. That's really great, and we're happy to have you here. We're going to have to step aside just a second here on Impact. We're talking to Mr. Joe Mariscal, local artist, and I hope you'll stay with us. We'll be back in just a minute.
Your education. Job 1 at San Joaquin Delta College. Congratulations, high school grads. Welcome, re-entry students. What's next? Delta's 70 technical programs will open career doors. Have a day job? Don't worry. Half of Delta's 17,000 students attend night school. Save thousands of dollars by completing your freshman and sophomore general education at Delta College. Classes begin August 19th at San Joaquin Delta College. Your education. Job 1 at San Joaquin Delta College. Congratulations, high school grads. Welcome, re-entry students. What's next? Delta College offers a wide range of subjects. Tired of minimum wage? Delta College's great teaching faculty will move you down the road to success. 54% of Delta College students are women. Check out our low enrollment fees and child care services. Classes begin August 19th at San Joaquin Delta College.
And welcome back to the Impact Show. In case you've just joined us, we're talking with local artist Joe Mariscal. Welcome back, Joe. I understand that you were involved in the Cesar Chavez mural here on the campus of Delta College. Can you tell me a little bit about your involvement with the mural?
Sure. Those of you that aren't aware, that Cesar Chavez, the union organizer, the farm workers, died last April, 93. And Delta College came together, a coalition of people on campus got together, different groups, got together to honor Cesar Chavez at the end of that year. And there was a memorial where people spoke. They were like one of the board members Maria Elena Serna was one of his organizers, so she's on the board of trustees. She made a presentation and told us about how those days were. And other people that knew the man, that were affected by the movement, so on and so forth, came together to present a memorial to the man and all he had done. And one of the things that we had decided would be a good thing to do would be to start a scholarship, and also something more lasting. And I wasn't involved with that until Richard Rios, who's also an instructor here at Delta College, approached me as a liaison between the groups. He came over and understood that the committee that had organized all this wanted to do something more permanent, and they considered it a work of art. But when they start throwing around figures, they thought they wouldn't have the money to do so, because a piece of sculpture that we did would normally range between $60,000 to $75,000, and they said, well, there's no way. And so Richard Rios approached me because he told them, let me talk to Joe and let's see, maybe we can do something about that cost. And we decided that we would donate our time to actually do this Cesar Chavez Memorial sculpture, which now hangs on the side of the library.
Yeah, we had a chance to take a look at that. So basically, we're talking a big sum of money. Was your time donated? Are the supplies donated, or did you donate your time? How did that?
That's correct. It's like coffee and pancakes. You know, it's all profit. Clay doesn't cost that much, so all we needed was the clay, the donation of the clay, and you know, the in kind or to have it hung. That part was the cost, the materials and actually hanging the piece on the wall. But the fabrication, myself and Richard Rios worked together and did the artistic part of it.
Now, being as a Mexican-American descent as you are, was that inspirational to you? Were you happy to do that for the Chavez? I mean, that obviously that means a lot to some people. What were your personal feelings on that?
Well, of course, you know, everybody had their own connection to this wonderful project. My parents were both immigrants. They came to this country, you know, very early. I mean, well, relatively early, 1920s, and worked agriculture. And I was actually the first member of my family to graduate from college. And so I certainly had a connection. I used to work out in the fields with my family, and you know, it was we understood it from literally the ground up, and the struggle for fair wages and, you know, working conditions, so on and so forth. It was a matter of human rights and justice, and so certainly anything that we contributed to it, you know, was done with great pleasure.
I bet you it was definitely a subject that needed to be addressed in the dying of Cesar Chavez, and the mural is just a great part of that. I understand there was a little controversy maybe with the church and state. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Good art is always controversial. You know,
right.
If it's not controversial, then it usually goes with your drapes, right? Your couch or something like that. But good art, you should hate it or you should love it, and that was the case. Some people hated it, some people loved it. Most people loved it, thank God. Else we wouldn't have been able to do this. But the controversy was when we decided to make this idea up. We came up with the idea we want to be historically correct, so on and so forth. And a great part of the movement, the farm labor movement, involved people, you know, would have certain images that they would carry with them. One of the images was the farm labor flag. Mm-hmm. And also a banner of the Virgen de Guadalupe, right, which was a banner depicting the Mother of God, and she's the patron saint of Latin America. So this would often be carried along the march, and so in the image we included that. And so there was an issue of the mixture of church and state, which is illegal, right? But on the day that this would be decided, the Board of Trustees would vote yes or no. There was a wonderful coalition of people, you know, literally a rainbow coalition, because there was people from all aspects of the community that came to speak in favor of the project. And one of the things I remember most was Bill Doffelmeyer from our history department was addressing the issue of church and state. He says, well, I guess we should start with the name of the college. In Spanish, if you translate San Joaquin Delta College, it's Saint Joaquin Delta College, so we'd have to change the name of the college because it's named after a saint. So it got to be a real minor issue because it didn't, in fact, become an issue of church and state as it's defined by the Supreme Court. It didn't fly, so it was voted by the Board of Trustees 5-2, I believe, that we should proceed with the project.
That's fantastic. We're going to have the opportunity now to look at the mural itself, and
Sure.
maybe you could walk us through it and tell us a little about what we see in here
Sure.
on
Now,
the camera.
here you can see the location on the side of Goldman Library, and we wanted it in a prominent place in the quad area. And like I said, I collaborated with Richard Rios on this project, and we basically decided that it should be about 4 foot by 8 foot. And it took us about 50 hours to put this together. We did it over Christmas vacation, and so we worked on it pretty straightforward and put in a lot of long hours. We had some like 10 to 14 hour days on this, but it was great fun to work on this scale and to develop this image, which sort of changed a bit from the original idea. Given the size of the project, we kind of adjusted things around, but the most prominent feature, of course, is Cesar Chavez, who is standing in the field. And here you see images of some of the people that are depicted in the mural itself. Now, as far as the images go, it'd be hard to include everybody that thought they should be in it. Somebody's always going to say, "Where am I?" So we took these faces I did from some resource material that was lent to us by Maria Elena Serna, the Board of Trustees, and other people that have memorabilia from that period of time, different media coverage, pictures, and so I took a lot of these faces from those, and it's like the face of every man, of every woman. And so, that's where I got. Someone said that that guy with the receding hairline is me there. Could be.
I see a little writing there in Spanish, and I think that has a meaning. Could you?
Sure.
What is that?
In fact, art imitates life, right? Si se puede. Yes, you can. Yes, we can do this. And it was kind of a rallying cry by the farm workers is to reassure yourself, the overwhelming odds, but we can do it. And in the process of firing this piece, I blew it up. And I had to do parts of it over, and I had to say to myself, si se puede, yes, you can do it, because at first I wanted to get on a train or a bus and leave town.
Yeah, for all your work and hard time you put in and have it blow up, but it looks like it turned out well.
Sure,
And everything went well for you. It's really a great piece of work there, and you're to be commended as Mr. Rios is. We're just glad to have it here at Delta College. As a teacher, getting away from the mural now, as a teacher, can anyone be an artist? Do you have an eye?
Well, I think people can be trained to do anything, but there's inherent intrinsic talent that people possess for any number of things. The mathematicians, the musicians, the artists. Everybody does something well, right? Like you're a pretty good host, Mark, so maybe this is your calling here. But, you start off with something that talks to you. And if you enjoy it, that level of involvement is enough. If you enjoy expressing yourself, whatever the medium, it's not to be discouraged. It's something that we should do more of, not less of, right? You look around town and some of the buildings that go up or some of the things they put a billboard in the middle of it's a matter of aesthetics, and we should develop that. And we should be able to teach everybody some level of aesthetic appreciation so that everybody has a stake in what goes up on the landscape there, so it's not an eyesore, because some of these things will last forever, right? But some artists are born, others can be kind of taught and trained.
Great. In getting to knowing you and talking to you a little bit, you've mentioned something about dogs. You like to use dogs in some of your sculptures. Why dogs, Joe?
Well, growing up as I did, I have a brother who's 15 years older, and I have a sister that's like 6 years. No, I'm sorry. My brother's 15 years younger, and my sister is 6 years older. So I was a middle child, and I pretty much considered myself growing up as the only child, because my sister got married very young. My brother didn't come along for much later. And so dogs were very important to me when I was a child. That I got one when I was 4 years old, and she didn't die until I got into boot camp. So she was around for a long time.
Yeah,
And
that's
so it appears in my sculptures because I like dogs, basically.
that's great. What can we expect from Joe Mariscal in the future as far as work in art? Or are you going to continue teaching here, or do you want to?
I hope I'll continue teaching here.
Sure.
Like I mentioned to you earlier off camera, I consider myself now a full-time teacher, part-time artist. It used to be the reverse. So I put a lot of energy in my teaching. I enjoy it. I enjoy working with the students, and you know, a lot of times there's not a lot left for myself in my own creative work, but that's okay. I have a little fit of creativity every now and then, and it's enough to satisfy me. And when I make a commitment for a show, I seem to be able to still kind of well up that creativity to get that taken care of. But primarily, my responsibilities right here on campus.
That's great, and I must say that Delta College is lucky to have you.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate you coming on the show here on Impact. It's been a pleasure, and I hope continued success for you. And right now we're going to show on the screens, if you have questions or comments to Mr. Joe Mariscal, you can contact him at the Division of Fine Physical Arts here at San Joaquin Delta College. That's 5151 Pacific Avenue, Stockton, California, 95207. Or give us a call here at Delta College, 474-5508, area code 209. So this is going to wrap it up for this issue of Impact, and we thank you for coming, and we enjoyed having you, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. This is Mark Foster. Bye-bye.